Hey guys, in this video we're going to see, what if Nagato gave Naruto the Rinnegan? Naruto x Konan harem. This is part 1, and if you want more then please comment 1 pink emojis. And complete 100 likes. I request you to check out author of this story named The Last One by Mega Darkly. And I have made Naruto impregnate all female ninjas on Patreon, so do check out. All details in description. Let's get in the video. I understand, Nagato wheezed looking at the blonde-haired ninja. Nagato's body lay defenseless in front of the Konan, moving up and down from light breathing. Naruto looked at him sternly, quickly going through everything that went on in his mind. After hearing Nagato's explanation for his doings, Naruto knew what he was going through, but the Konan knew that it was the wrong way to go about the situation. Naruto finally broke Nagato's outer shell. That is why I have decided on a few things. Nagato returned. I will revive everyone I've killed recklessly. But before I do that, there is something you need to know. Naruto gazed upon the nearly lifeless man, now curious as to what the Rinnegan had to say. Konan looked at her friend as well, keeping quiet so she would not interrupt him. Her face was solemn, but unsure of which emotion she needed. There are things about your family that you don't know. Things that were so dangerous that most of your relatives were killed in order to prevent chaos, Nagato croaked. He looked at the boy whose facial features softened from confusion. The truth is, your family held a very powerful bloodline trait, Naruto. This trait was so deadly that during the Second Great Shinobi War, everyone made an attempt to kill them. Well, if they're all dead, then how does that relate to me? The blonde nin bluntly asked. Nagato looked down at the boy and then curled his lips upward. 2 of them survived the war, Naruto. The leaf nin widened his eyes upon that response. Why you mean, my father was a survivor? Nagato slightly chuckled, which followed by a hacking cough. Once he settled down, he continued. No, Naruto, your mother was the one who survived. My mother? Naruto questioned. Nagato received glances from both Naruto and Konan, but merely shrugged them off with an indifferent composure. Yes, Naruto. Kushina Uzumaki was a survivor from the Shinobi War clan massacre. Her abilities were unawakened during the time of the massacre, so no one could tell her descent. She then moved to Konoha to hide from the killings and turned herself into a Konoha ninja. Naruto nodded at that, but then he realized something. Wait, if 2 of them survived, then who is the other one? Nagato looked at him with his breathing still ragged from chakra consumption. Then he dropped the seriousness that etched across his face to let out the gentlest smile he could muster and replied. I am Naruto. Both Konan and the blonde-haired Jinchuriki face faulted at the Rinnegan wielder. What? Nagato, is this true? Konan asked the red-headed man, who willingly shook his head in compliance. Yes, Konan, Naruto is my little cousin. The Konoha didn't know what to say about all of this new evidence. Everything he knew about himself and his heritage brought itself into a new light. All he did was drop to his knees and bang his hand on the floor. A few tears shed from his face, followed by chants of why. And I can't believe it, obviously from the sudden realization that had taken place. Don't be sad, Naruto. It was supposed to happen this way. Naruto looked up at Nagato with teary eyes, who gave him a comforting smile. He then got back up and wiped his face with his sleeve, feeling as if a boy shouldn't cry. Oh, so that's why you wanted him last. Is that why we never caught him as well? Konan asked, unsure of the situation. Nagato shook his head in agreement. And because Naruto is just so powerful, a slight snicker escaped his lips. Any information received about Naruto, I simply destroyed. I didn't want my cousin treated like some animal, like he had been treated for most of his life. Naruto's eyes widened again at the statement. That's right. I have been watching you ever since you became a ninja. I've watched you grow into what you are today, and to say I'm impressed is an understatement. For a while, I thought you would have rebelled, but you kept your head held high. I guess that's something I envy about you. The redhead lowered his view from wandering eyes and softly continued. That is why, before I go, I have something to give you. Approach me, Naruto. The Konoha was wary, but did as was told by taking reluctant steps closer to the man. Naruto heard a soft click on the left and right arm braces that held Nagato's hands. His arms trembled weakly as he tried to release them from the arm cuffs. Finally, He extracted his hands only to have them flop to his sides. The blonde ninja climbed onto the mechanized four-legged vehicle, getting within reach of the Rinnegan wielder. Nagato smiled at the boy before him as he lifted his arms. He brought them up in great difficulty, placing his thumbs on both cheeks underneath the eyes of the Konohanin's face. He then placed both his index fingers and middle fingers on Naruto's temples, gaining full attention of the boy. This may hurt a little at first, but it will go away in a moment, Nagato assured him, only to get a frightened look from the Leaf Ninja. The redhead then closed his eyes and began chanting a mantra, producing a lavender chakra through his fingers that seeped into Naruto's skin. Not even a moment later, the blonde ninja began screaming in agony. Gaiak! Naruto choked out as the mantra continued. More chakra dispersed through his fingers as Nagato proceeded with the chant, which made small steam formations begin to appear around said fingers. Naruto closed his eyes as a burning sensation swept through his entire body. He felt like he was in his own personal hell as fire seemed to invisibly consume the boy, making all of his nervous system react to the painful feeling. This lasted for another few seconds before, finally, Nagato released his grip, in turn making Naruto fall to the floor with steam protruding from the Akatsuki's former finger placements. The Konohanin made several attempts to vomit, but never succeeded as the feeling died slowly. Naruto fought to get back up by fumbling a few times on his feet, but managed to reach full height again. His eyes stung to the degree that he had to keep them shut for the time being. A minute or so passed as Nagato started up again. All right, Naruto, you can open your eyes now. The blonde-haired boy opened them and blinked a few times before fully focusing again. Nagato looked at Naruto and gave him a slight smile and confidence. I have awakened your ability. The ability of the Rinnegan. It is not a full Rinnegan because you have not mastered it yet, but I don't see a problem with you increasing it to its fullest potential. Naruto looked at his reflection on one of the metal braces and realized that 2 violet rings had replaced his irises entirely. The scene caused him to jump back in amazement, in turn making him stumble over his own feet. Nagato started talking once Naruto jumped up to his feet again. Yes, your eyes have turned to Rinnegan, but it's never permanently that way. You can turn it on or off whenever you use it, sort of like the Byakugan from the Hyuga clan. The blonde nin shook his head as the Rinnegan faded into his normal ocean blue eyes. Konan was speechless. The boy who had fought against them for so long was, in actuality, Nagato's cousin, another holder of the Rinnegan. Nagato must have full trust in this boy. I have never seen him like this before, Konan thought as she gazed upon the two. A few minutes passed as Nagato finally spoke up. Naruto, I am sorry about what I have done. Hopefully you will use the Rinnegan better than I have. The blonde-haired ninja looked at Nagato and then gave him a sad smile. By the time I have revived everyone, I will hopefully have moved on to a better place. My own peace. Wait. No, you can't die, Konan shouted as she watched the man prepare himself. He looked at her solemnly, as if he was contemplating something, then gave her a happy glare. It has to be done, Konan. I was foolish. I killed thousands of people trying to find an answer. Now I'm paying for my actions. No, please. I need you. I'll have no one left if you're gone. She returned. Naruto? Nagato called to him, completely ignoring his friend. The blonde Jinchuriki met the operator's gaze. Take care of Konan for me. Naruto nodded his head and watched as the Rinnegan wielder made a few hand signs to pour the rest of his chakra into the move. It took well over a minute before they witnessed Nagato's body go limp and all signs of life fade. Naruto sighed as he recalled everything that occurred previously. His very last family member died before his very eyes. A family member he never even knew he had. It brought on a feeling of remorse, which caused him to stifle tears by blinking a few times. Konan lay silent as she took in the information as well. Her best friend of many years revealed evidence that she never knew or didn't bother to put the pieces together. How could she have missed it? How could Nagato not tell her something of this importance? They were friends, right? I do remember something that happened when we received data regarding the Nine Tails. She looked at the blonde ninja, falling into a not-so-distant memory. Flashback equals. Payne held himself primarily in the desk room of his house in Amage Cure, assorting papers and scrolls alike on whereabouts of Jinchuriki and other information such as conditions of other villages and teammates of the Akatsuki. His office was rather dark, only lit up by a small lamp to his left. Bookshelves littered his office with hundreds of books old and new, and he had one massive wall-sized window looking out into the entire village. He came across the two-tailed Jinchuriki report and began glancing through the scroll, looking for keywords containing any clues to her whereabouts. A knock rapped on his door, followed by a grunt from Payne, signaling entrance to his office. Payne Taishu? Konan asked the orange-haired Akatsuki. Speak your matters. He replied, busy, looking over the scroll. I have information regarding the 9 tails Jinchuriki. She returned, pulling a scroll from a pouch underneath her cloak and placing it on his desk. Payne widened his eyes, placing them on the scroll. The 9 tails? He reached his hand, laying it upon the wrapped paper. Then, with a swift motion, he opened the scroll. This was the first information he received of the 9-tailed fox, so he wanted to read it as quickly as possible. Information came in the following. Report. Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto. Age, 12 years old. Demon, Kitsune. Hashtag of tails, total of 9. Village of origin, Konan. Last known location, Konan. What? No, it can't be. He looked over it, and then over it a second time, a third time, even a fourth time until it finally sank in. Uzumaki. The name dripped from his tongue in astonishment. He hadn't heard that name in nearly 13 years, and to say he was shocked was a poor choice of words. He was speechless. Another Uzumaki is still alive? Another Uzumaki? He mused to himself. He had received word of Kushina's death, but never knew she bore a son, much less a son that now possessed the Jinchuriki. Is something wrong? Konan, confused in the situation, asked her longtime friend, only to receive a sharp glare from Payne. Send for Itachi immediately. Konan felt paralyzed from the sudden outburst for a second, only to shrug it off and disappear into paper. She appeared with Itachi moments later, who gave Payne a silent stare. Itachi, there's a matter that has to be handled with utmost importance. The Uchiha still seemed unfazed while quietly eyeing the head Akatsuki. Continue. There is a boy from Konoha that possesses the QB. I'm sure you have knowledge about the layout of Konoha. Itachi lightly nodded. That's why I need you to keep a full eye on this boy. Any new information you receive comes directly to me. I don't want anything happening to him. I want to be the one to face him. I'm sure you have an understanding as to why I'm doing this. The Uchiha raised a slight eyebrow from the barely noticeable signals the Akatsuki leader was gesturing. Konan didn't notice them, but Itachi very well did. He knew exactly what Payne was talking about, as if it were a mutual feeling that no one else could understand. Understood, Payne Taishu. And with that, the Uchiha disappeared by Shunshin. The orange-haired Akatsuki sat back down at his desk, unaware that he got up from his seat to relay the message. Konan looked at her friend, unsure of what was going on in his mind, but she knew that deep down something was troubling him. They've known each other for a long time, so it's not as if anything Payne does would go unnoticed by her. Feeling she needs to find the underlying cause of the situation, Konan decides to ask him. Payne? She asked him with uncertainty in her voice. Was it Konan? The Akatsuki head returned. She walked a little closer to him and held her weight on her palm to his desk. Is there a problem with the 9 tails? You seem hesitant. He stopped immediately what he was doing, which startled her slightly. Everything's fine, Konan. No need to worry. He's just the strongest one is all. He gave her an assured smile, but she wasn't buying it. You think you can hide it, but I know there's S. Everything's fine, Konan. He shouted with more force than he wanted, which made the paper angel wince from the sudden noise. Well, if you ever need anyone to talk to, I am here, Nagato. She told the man while giving him a sad look. I know, Konan, I know. Payne replied breathlessly. He got up, walked over to the wall-sized window, and began looking out into the rain as if something was there. It seemed like he wanted to talk about it, but he just didn't have the heart to. Konan could feel his sadness radiating from him. She knew something was hurting inside of Payne. A new anguish that made him second-guess a couple of things. Maybe it was something she could help with. They had been friends since they were kids, so there shouldn't be anything that they couldn't tell each other. However, there was something that he didn't want to reveal to his friend, which left her slightly confused. Finally, she concluded that nothing else said could change his mind about it, so she asked one final question. "Need me for anything else, Pain Taishu?" She asked reluctantly. "You're dismissed," he called. "Yes, sir." The purple-haired Akatsuki responded, walking out of the door. She turned her head one last time to look at Pain, who was still gazing out into the rain-filled city lost in thought. She then lowered her head slightly and softly closed the door. In flashback . After she remembered that, she felt like a total idiot. All of that time, she had to figure out, and she fell completely oblivious to it. Then her gaze turned back to Nagato. Her friend from umpteen years was dead. Her last friend from the trio, which now consisted of one, was dead. The realization finally hit her. Then for the first time since the war, she began to cry. She slumped to her knees and pushed her hands to the floor. A tear or two rolled from her cheeks as she continued to lightly sob. She didn't know what to do anymore. Her friend Nagato was head of the organization ever since Ihiko died. She could continue as leader, but there was no reason to continue a society that had no purpose anymore, since the previous owner defected himself before he passed on. She sobbed even more each time she thought about his death. Naruto watched her sulk in her own misery and started to feel sorry for the lowly Rain-nin. He didn't know what to do for Konan since she was once the enemy, but something told him that deep down inside, she too was human just like him. He walked over to her feeling the need to console her, because he has been there before and he knows how it feels. Then she began to shout hysterically, "Keep away from me." She began worming her way to get farther from him. "Konan, I understand how you feel." "How? Shut up. You understand nothing." That last word had so much disgust in each syllable that it spat from her mouth like acid. Naruto tried to move closer, but she still wormed even farther until she reached a wall, continuing to sob with her face turned in an angle that blocked Naruto's view to see her cry. "Stay away," Konan yelled, making Naruto wince. He knew she really didn't want him to keep away from her, but she really wasn't the type he would just up and hug either. He didn't know her too well, but Nagato did tell him to take care of her, so he went for second best. "You think I didn't cry when Jiraiya-sensei died? I don't think that pain will ever go away. Jiraiya-sensei was my godfather." He began to feel enraged the more he thought about it. It was something he wanted to get off his chest for a very long time. He could not believe he was actually saying it, but there he was on autopilot, speaking whatever his heart felt now. "He taught me almost everything. I wouldn't be alive right now if it wasn't for him." She still sobbed on the wall, not saying a word, which made Naruto vent even more. He slapped his hands on his face from the frustration, then screamed, "I just killed my cousin. My last family member I will ever know is dead. I'm alone just as much as you are, damn it." He then kicked a stone across the cave, making it ricochet from a wall until it landed several yards away. After that response, Konan looked up at him. Naruto was actually crying again, but his face wasn't sad. No, he had an enraged air about him now, something she had never seen before, which frightened her a bit. Try living with no family your whole life and knowing everybody hates your guts. It'll give you a good kick in the teeth. That scenario seemed familiar to her. Then she remembered Nagato and his life. The sudden revelation brought Konan wide-eyed again. Nagato and Naruto weren't too much different. Nagato lost his parents in the war when he was young. The Rinnegan, he had made people shun him for what he was. Then she reviewed Naruto. From what she knew, his parents died when he was a baby, and everybody shunned him for the QB sealed away inside of his body. Her mouth then dropped open upon that fact. "You're right, huh?" Naruto responded. He didn't think it would stick to her this quickly, so it threw him for a loop. "You're absolutely right, Naruto Uzumaki." She got up from her position, using the cave wall to prop herself up from the floor. She wasn't crying, but the tear stains and running mascara proved she did at one point. "There are people who have suffered far worse than I have. I shouldn't embarrass myself with such trivial things." She then wiped her face with her palms to remove the emotional stains that covered her cheeks. Naruto's demeanor changed toward her after that. Noticing the way she was now, it made him finally realize that war does things to people. It was almost as if she was a scared child in an older body. He then sauntered himself over to the Rinnegan and gently placed his left hand on her shoulder. Look, Konan, I know it hurts, but there is no reason to beat yourself up about it. The only thing you can do now is keep moving forward, you know? She dared to look into his eyes and saw a fire swelling deep within those pools of ocean blue. The same fire someone she once loved had at one point, and just for a split second, she thought it was this person. An unnoticed smile grew on her facial features. Her smile was not enough to show appreciation for Naruto's attempt to console her, but just enough to show she concluded in her mind about something. Well, Naruto started scratching his cheek with his index finger, breaking eye contact by embarrassment. I could ask if you could I don't know, join Konoha or something. That statement broke her ruminations. The sheer thought of her joining the Leaf seemed preposterous. She was an S-rank criminal who was in the most feared organization of the land. Her smile faded as she shook her head in rejection. As sweet as the offer sounds, I don't think I can. She lowered her head and moved a few feet for Naruto. But Konan, I could tell them that you change your mind about your ways, or you help me W. No, Naruto, I just can't. She interrupted, staring him in the eyes. If I tried to leave to your village, they would only ask for my execution. Naruto stared at her in disbelief. She seemed like she wanted to go. He could see the sadness in her eyes, even though it wasn't apparent at the moment. Nevertheless, even though there was sadness, her lips seemed to say something else to reject the boy. But no buts. Konan retorted, disrupting his sentence again. Now if you'll excuse me, I have matters to attend to. She turned to leave the cave, only to receive an angry look from the blonde Nin. But I'm supposed to protect you. Naruto burst, clenching his fists. Konan stopped dead in her tracks. A gasp entered her lungs as once again, another thing about this boy reminded her of Yahiko. The orange-haired ninja had said that to Konan one last time before he died. The girl was very distraught about the death of her teammate, since she did have a crush on him after all. But after Nagato replaced him as Akatsuki leader, neither one of them spoke about it again. The purple-haired Nin then looked at Naruto, who flustered looking for an answer. Not like that. I meant, Nagato told me to protect you, so... His sentence cut itself short as she walked over and gently wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't an affectionate hug. It wasn't even a friendly hug. It was just a simple hug of compassion. Just as soon as he got used to the feeling, she quickly pulled back, making sure to signal to him that it was not a pass. While her arms came from around his chest, she held out something to him. Flowers? The blonde Nin asked. Konan was holding a bouquet of origami flowers. Naruto had never seen anything like them before, so he was a little curious. It's a sign of friendship and trust. Konan told the boy before he grabbed them. He eyed them studiously, alternating between her and the flowers. I can't go with you, Naruto. I have another village to look after. She continued as the ex-Akatsuki began to take her leave. Naruto fumbled quickly, trying to think of what to say. Will I ever see you again? She turned her head to eye him. A smile came over her features as she did a shunshin by paper from her spot, leaving an anxious and confused Naruto. It had been nearly 3 days since the great revival of Konoha, since the day Naruto found out that he was the last Rinnegan user. This came as a shock to him and caused him to reflect upon his life and what he really knew about himself. To be honest, he hasn't been acting as himself ever since he came back to the Leaf Village. Sure, he enjoyed the celebration after his return to Konoha, but the celebration seemed hollow. Should they really be having a victory party from the death of his cousin? Most people, who were either hammering walls or cementing floors, stopped immediately what they were doing to greet the savior of the village. As he walked through town, the village acknowledged cheerfully to the Uzumaki, either giving him a pat on the shoulder or telling him simple words of encouragement. A lot of times, there will even be little kids that would encircle him and ask him to play. Sometimes he would agree, but most recently he began to decline them, saying that he was too busy at the moment. He really wasn't busy at the time. He was just in no mood to join the children in their time to fool around. Ichiraku wouldn't be built for another day or two, so he scuffed his feet all the way to his newly built apartment that was in place of the original. The entire village contributed to his apartment by making it slightly bigger than the original. There was an additional room and an expanded kitchen. Even the bathroom saw an increase in size as it nearly doubled in width, leaving plenty of legroom to walk around. He unlocked the door and slowly trudged inside. The scent of fresh paint and newly cut wood filled his nostrils as he walked through his recently acquired home. He looked to his left and right and saw the brand new furniture and food that loaded his house. The new food piled to the ceiling with ribbons, cans, condiments, and many different types of homemade food. The people were indebted to him and had to repay him somehow for saving their lives. So with nothing else to do, he sat down and took a rest on his new sofa. He placed his palm underneath his chin and stared out of the wide window that overlooked the street. People were still busily working on other buildings. Seeing the people doing this made him think of an anthill. Even though the anthill gets destroyed, the ants always come out and rebuild as if nothing ever happened. Then his attention fell on the origami flowers. He placed them in a vase and put on the windowsill the day before as a reminder of the alliance he and Konan now share with the leaf and rain. Alliance? He asked, looking at the blue flowers. He twiddled them between his index and middle fingers, staring at them blankly. Asterisk. XXXXXXXXXXO. Give me what I seek. Toby/Madara asked the half-beaten girl. You will gain nothing but death by fighting me. Konan looked at him, clenching her arm, try to staunch the pain. Her body tingled in agony with each breath she took. The chakra reserves in her body depleted her energy to move too vigorously, as it was a chore to even keep on her feet while she stood there encompassed with paper. Toby/Madara came for Nagato's body to simply steal the Rinnegan and obtain the secrets and uses of the ability, but was welcomed with a deathly encounter with the blue-haired ex-Akatsuki. I will never let you take him. Her fury began to overweigh her safety, but she didn't care. As long as she kept her friend away from the hand of the grabber, she would risk her life to make sure nothing was disturbed. Fool! Do you know who I am? He bellowed. I don't care who you are. I will die before I let you take him. A fire burned in her eyes as she said that. Her was flaming fiercely. The orange-masked man looked at her for a few seconds and then smirked under his mask. So be it. He formed a few hand signs and released an unavoidable fireball jutsu. It went so fast that Konan couldn't get out of the way even if she wanted to. The flames surrounded her body and burned her skin, causing her to scream in excruciating pain. Her final resistance was overrun as she fell limply to the ground. Toby/Madara looked at the girl and then placed his eyes on Nagato with delight. He released his space-time jutsu and sucked in Nagato's body to another dimension by his Sharingan. Just when he was about to leave, a quick figure made an attempt to attack Toby by ramming through the man with a spiraling sphere of chakra. The masked man went intangible as the figure went straight through him, causing the Rinnegan to explode on the ground, forming a crater with dust and debris taking the air. Toby looked in the direction the person resided and saw a figure standing on the opposite end of the room. Konan staggered her head to look up and saw an orange blur appear in front of her. Her facial features softened slightly once she realized who it was. Naruto? She asked weakly as the boy guarded her. Sorry it took me so long, Konan. The blonde Nin told her unwavered. He was steadily leering at Toby/Madara, making sure the Uchiha didn't make any early starts. The orange-masked Akatsuki stared at the boy. He felt something different about him, as if his power increased twofold. This feeling, Madara thought, still receiving glares from the Konoha. This boy, this power, how did he get so much stronger in such a short amount of time? He looked at the boy again, and this time his eyes lingered onto Naruto's. What? Madara thought out loud. What is this? Their eyes interlocked each other's gaze as Toby found himself staring into the boy's eyes. The Rinnegan. Madara then, for the first time in a while, felt a little fear for his safety. The orange-masked man knew he was no match for Naruto in his current state, as Toby did not have a Rinnegan yet. He needed a viable excuse to make his leave, because if the Akatsuki made one false move, the show was over. He looked at Naruto and calmly spoke. It is not our time to fight, boy. Toby answered, taking baby steps away from the Konoha. He already accomplished his objective, so there was no need to fight the blonde. Then, with a wispy sound, he disappeared by using his space-time jutsu. Naruto clenched his fists, but let it go as he thought he would never be able to catch Madara now, or he didn't want to get into a place where Madara had the advantage and could easily take out the blonde nin. The Rinnegan faded from his eyes as he turned his attention to Konan. She had fallen unconscious from the chakra consumption, and burn marks scattered all over her body. Her cloak was torn in many places, and her hair was slightly singed on the ends. Blood fell from her mouth, and dirt marks littered her body as well. A melancholy emotion overtook his features. When he looked at her, the sight of a nearly lifeless person laying on her deathbed, it made his stomach cringe. No one should have to suffer like this. Don't worry, Konan. I'll get you somewhere safe. He hefted her bridal style and found her to be a little lighter than he thought, but shook that distraction as he dashed for his life. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Konan felt weightless as she laid there, letting her consciousness roam freely. She felt as if she had a fever and couldn't get up because she was too weak. Her fingertips felt cold against her face as she basked in the cool sensation it gave her. Then to her left, a shadowy figure came over and laid a cool rag on her forehead. She calmed even more and let out a relaxing sigh as the rag permeated the icy feeling through her forehead. She looked over to her right a little and saw a spiky-haired shadow. The silhouette looked over her with a solemn face, like he was hoping the girl would wake. The figure seemed like he knew her, but her roaming conscience made it seem like she knew him as well. Konan tried to get a better view of the boy by turning her head more in his direction. Just then, her senses suddenly fell sharp as she remembered who he was. She began to slightly tear up as she called his name. Yahiko! She shouted, tearing out of the bed. Ignoring the dropped rag, she wrapped her arms around the figure, who accepted without hesitation by embracing the girl. She sat there for a moment, continuing her hug and silently sobbing. A minute or so passed as the figure started talking. He seemed hesitant, but needing to say something. Konan-san? The shadow asked. I'm glad you're happy that I saved your life, but do you have to hug so tightly? Her thought processes terminated as she slowly drew her head up from the figure's shoulder. She knew whose voice that was all too well as in her arms sat a confused and flushed Naruto. She recalled what happened, and not a split second later, she jerked away as a slight blush filled her cheeks from the already somewhat feverish face. I'm sorry, I thought. Never mind. Her lips pursed as her sight fell on the bed. Naruto looked at her and then looked at his arms. That feeling he felt from Konan when he held her was something he always wanted to feel. He had also wished to know what it would feel like to be loved like Konan seemed to have showed to him. For the moment, she seemed to be in a state of longing for the boy, which left him feeling a little sad about the sudden jerk away from the girl. If only he could wrap his arms around her again. Wait a minute. What am I thinking? GYH. Pull yourself together, Naruto, he said, shaking his head. He then pinched and pulled his two cheeks apart to try and erase the memory and thoughts that began to plague his mind. You don't like Konan-san. You can't. She's like way older than you. Just remember, you still have Sakura-chan to worry about. Yeah, that's right, Naruto-san. Konan asked quietly. Naruto glanced back at her, repressing any memories that floundered in his mind. Where am I? She returned in the same tone as before. Oh, well, we're in Konoha Hospital. He replied cheekily. Konoha, she exclaimed. But how? Well, he started while scratching his whisker marks. It's a long story. Flashback Tsunade sat in her recovery bed in the Konoha Hospital. After fighting pain, she seemed to have fallen into a coma from the long and painful fight that fell in the village. Her thoughts were a little hazy about what actually happened, so if anyone asked her about what took place, she wouldn't give him or her a clear answer. When she awoke in her hospital bed, Shizune and many others filled in the details and what occurred previously. To say she was surprised that Naruto defeated pain was an understatement. She was thrilled. It seemed that Naruto was filling Jiraiya's shoes, not only by becoming a sage, but also in his personality as well. Depending on how long you are around a person, you tend to become more like them. In Naruto's case, he was almost a spitting image of Jiraiya's persona when the sage was younger, minus the perverted side. But she didn't think on it for too long, as the Godame had a major headache that throbbed in her frontal lobes. It was a headache that made her want to smash her face with a hammer to get rid of the sensation. To see the nine-tailed Jinchuriki burst through the door only made matters worse. "Hey, Granny Tsunade, I need your help," he screamed as he roamed to her bed. "Naruto, what's the meaning of this? Barging into my room like a madman?" The Godame asked, a little irritated. The headache made her more irate than she would have been normally, but Naruto merely shrugged off the attitude by answering the reason why he was there. "Well, you see, I have this problem." He fidgeted. "Well, I have this friend who is seriously injured, and I need to get them to a room to be healed as soon as possible." The Hokage looked at him like he was slightly idiotic. Usually people ask her for more king-like favors, as in doing a mission or asking to retrieve something of major significance, not something this mediocre. "Why are you asking me? If someone is injured, then take them to the medical need. You don't have to ask my permission for something like that," she replied, bothered by the seemingly stupid scenario. That's the problem. If I try to bring this person in, the medical need might reject her treatment." Tsunade shot a questionable look to the boy. She was sort of intrigued by who Naruto had in his mind. It also made her a little nervous because the medical need usually heal anyone except enemies of the nation. "Who do you actually have, Naruto?" Her voice dropped lividness and had a more serious tone. She went straight to the point, keeping Naruto from beating around the bush. "Well, if I tell you, you have to heal her, promise?" The blonde nin asked, almost pleading. "It doesn't work that way, Naruto. Now tell me who it is." Tsunade snapped, causing the Jinchuriki to jump. Naruto cast his head downward and then reluctantly strolled over to Tsunade, making sure that no one except her could hear. Specifically keeping wandering ANBU ears from eavesdropping, he started to whisper, "Konan from the Akatsuki." "What?" she yelled, that echoed through the whole place. ANBU quickly filled the area, trying to figure out what was going on. What's going on? Lady Hokage? Is there an intruder? "No, you idiots, leave this room at once. This is a matter between me and Naruto here." Tsunade interjected. The ANBU felt a tad disappointed, but left as quickly as they came, making sure not to enrage the Hokage. She kneaded her forehead, letting out a sigh as she did so. This was making her head hurt more than necessary. Naruto was always good at giving her a hard time, and it seemed like he was doing it again. This time she was interested why he wanted her rehabilitated, though, so she started a barrage of questions. "Why do you want her healed, Naruto? Does she have good information?" she asked, a little confused. It's not every day that someone wants an enemy restored to their original status. Naruto shook his head furiously. "No, she's a friend now. She's not even with the Akatsuki anymore." Tsunade lowered her gaze. She felt bad for Naruto, as he was still a teenager who didn't fully know the rules. Look, just because she left the Akatsuki, it doesn't mean that all of her actions toward the Leaf Village are forgiven. Naruto frowned at that statement. "I know. It's just that Nagato told me to take care of her. I didn't know any other way than to bring her to the place that is the safest to me." "Konoha," he told her softly. "Wait a minute." The Hokage interrupted. "Nagato told you to take care of her?" Naruto looked at her again and replied quickly. "Yeah, he trusted me with that request, and I have to live up to it. So can you do it?" He was getting riled up from his words just thinking about it. The more he sat here, the closer Konan was to death, and he had to idly wait by. She could be dead right now, and he wouldn't even know it. Tsunade was unaware of the anger and continued to ask more questions. "Well, why would he want you to protect her? He knew you were the enemy." Naruto then clenched his fists. "Because Nagato and I came to an understanding with each other. He trusts me. Can you heal her?" He also gritted his teeth from the dragging on this conversation did. "But that still doesn't make any sense that he would trust you. You were the Tsunade was cut off as Naruto finally had it. Because he's my cousin. He trusts me." He finally screamed, causing a great panic from Tsunade. The Hokage's eyes widened intensely as she gained a view of Naruto. He was staring heatedly at her now, but that wasn't the reason why she was wide-eyed. She looked into the Jinchuriki's eyes and saw the two violet circles on each iris. She gained a full view of the Rinnegan Naruto now possessed. Her speech became hoarse as she felt a spell wash over her, but she automatically regained her composure, feeling the need to say something. "The Rinnegan?" she choked out. The Go Dame was at a loss. She just received information that she never knew, and now it seemed that Naruto now obtained the Rinnegan as well. Yes, Naruto started. His last gift to me was the Rinnegan. He gave it to me right before he died and entrusted me with the gift to protect his last best friend and find true peace. His gaze faltered as he found himself looking at the floor. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't care if people hate me for doing this, because if they were in my shoes, they would do the same thing. So, are you going to help me or not? Tsunade was speechless. Things were jumbled in her head, and she couldn't think clearly. Maybe it was the headache that caused this mishap, or maybe it was all of this new information that she never knew in the first place. It's not like anyone could give her a plausible answer. She tried to find something to say to the blonde-haired Jinchuriki, only to open her mouth, not say a word. It stayed like that for a few more seconds before Naruto turned his head to the door. Fine. If you won't help, I will find someone who will. He said his final words and went for the door. Tsunade felt she had to say something, so she shouted his name. Naruto, what? He retorted lividly, turning his head to her direction. Well, I can't do it because I'm still in the hospital, but I think I can get someone else to help you. What made her change her mind was never really clear, but Naruto seemed to have gotten through to her in some way. Tsunade didn't even know what words were coming from her own mouth. It almost made her dizzy by the event that was taking place, as seeing Naruto this way seemed totally unlike him. He was usually happy and carefree, a little arrogant in some way too, but never hot-headed. The last time she saw him this way seemed to be when he was trying to bring her back to Konoha. Naruto had to fight Orochimaru along the way. He was mad that day too, but it looked like he only gets short-tempered when he is protecting someone. That's one of his better qualities. She thought deeply, but then automatically continued her response to Naruto. Umbu, report. She yelled, summoning the cloaked characters from the front door to the hospital room. Yes, Lady Hokage. The ANBU guards replied in unison. Bring in Haruno Sakura. Tell her to drop everything immediately and come to my room. It is an emergency. She answered forcefully. Yes, Lady Hokage. They replied again in unison. They both instantly disappeared by Shunshin, leaving Naruto and Tsunade alone again. You're helping me? Naruto turned back to the lady who gave him a pitiful look of some sort. Yes. I don't know why, but I trust your decision, Naruto. She felt complacent with that answer as she scanned the room. Don't worry. I will have a room secluded specifically for her in this infirmary, so no one harms her. Tsunade responded shortly after. The look on her face changed as her eyes lingered to the ceiling with an annoyed gesture. It's not going to be easy explaining this one. When he heard the Go Dame's robust statement, it made him feel like a weight had been lifted off of his shoulders. Thank you, Tsunade-sama. The Hokage blinked a couple of times when those words spoke from Naruto's mouth. She had never been spoken to so formally by him before. It was almost unnerving to hear the maturity from the blondine. Yeah, I want a better explanation of everything that took place in your fight with Nagato. So don't forget, she finalized before Sakura and a few ENBU appeared. Yes, milady. Sakura asked, completely oblivious to Naruto's appearance. The ENBU quickly disappeared afterward from a signal the Hokage passed to them. Sakura, I want you to accompany Naruto and do whatever he asks of you. No questions asked. Tsunade started. But, Lady Tsunade. Sakura burst before she received a raising hand from the Hokage. I don't want to hear it. The Sannin interjected. This is something that has to be handled with utmost importance. Whatever you were doing previously has to be done later. This is a matter between life and death. Tsunade told the girl, unwavered. Sakura looked over to Naruto, who seemed like he wanted to run in whatever direction possible to do what Tsunade was asking. He had an ache in his eyes that wasn't really apparent unless you knew him for a long time. Sakura has known him for the last 4 years of her life, so it was not like things he felt would just slip by her. Concern washed over her face as she felt worried for her friend. Yes, milady. Sakura finally replied. Naruto couldn't hold it in anymore. He sprinted out of the door and ran to the desired location at breakneck speeds. W8. Naruto! Sakura shouted only to get no response from the blondine. Naruto was in his own little world. He couldn't hear or say anything, since the only thing he was worried about at the moment was laying on the Konoha hospital rooftop. It was somewhere inconspicuous, so no one would dare touch the person or even bother to look. It was getting harder for Sakura to keep up because Naruto was still running and didn't want to stop or showed any signs to. She tried calling him several more times, but the boy simply ignored her. Once they reached the roof, Naruto took a sharp left and veered into a corner of the building, dodging around vents and air conditioning units. He finally stopped and kneeled down next to a larger vent that had nothing around it. Sakura was confused, but only for a moment, as Naruto dispelled the genjutsu to reveal a beaten and tattered Konan lying next to the vent. The ex-Akatsuki was barely breathing and looked as if she were clinging onto life by a single thread. "Naruto, is this?" Sakura started, but stopped once she saw the Jinchuriki's face. He had a look of contempt to the girl as she lay there helpless. It was as if he was thinking hard about something. Then, without changing his gaze on the blue-haired woman, he asked Sakura a question. "Can you heal her?" Each word seemed to cut through the air like a razor. He was dead serious about this. He really wanted an enemy of the nation healed. He didn't even really know this person too well, but he would heal her with no hesitation. She looked at him like he was doing something stupid and received no glares from him as his eyes were still fixated on the Rinnegan. "Naruto, you can't be serious. She is the enemy. Why would you wah?" She abruptly stopped as she saw a tear fall from the boy's cheek. "Because I promised a friend." The boy replied hoarsely. "Please, Sakura, can you please heal her?" His gaze did not leave the blue-haired girl's face. Sakura looked at her friend and then looked at the Rinnegan again as she contemplated for a second or two, not really knowing what was going on in the boy's head. "All right, Naruto, but we're going to have to remove her Akatsuki cloak and any other identifiable items if we want to do this without any problems," she answered to the blonde nin. Naruto lightly nodded his head as he watched Sakura. Konan no longer had the light blue origami flower on her head, which may have fallen off previously from her encounter with Tobi, so Sakura went for her Akatsuki cloak instead. She pulled off the Rinnegan's cloak to reveal attire unseen. She pulled the red and black cloak to reveal a dark blue zip-up robe that began zipping right above the navel and flared out around her waist. The robe also had no sleeves and left her back bare, allowing easy mobility. His eyes followed Sakura's movements as she continued unclothing the other woman. The missing cloak also revealed skin-tight pants that matched the robe in color, with a wrapped pouch below her hip. Of course, the clothes she wore were torn and dirted, but they were ignored as Sakura went up to remove all of Konan's piercings, starting with her lip. Once she was through with that, the lifeless girl offered no resistance as Sakura finally removed her belly button piercings as well, leaving open holes on her bruised but fair skin. "Now," Sakura started, "I will only restore her enough to keep her alive for now. The rest of the healing will have to be done in the hospital." He made a silent agreement as Sakura then gently placed her hands on Konan's body, taking the proper steps any medical ninja would be required to do in extreme conditions. Naruto watched as a chakra with a greenish glow began quivering around the medic nin's hands. Her eyelids fell as she examined the Rinnegan's damage. She has a couple of ruptured organs with 4 broken ribs, and one of those ribs has lodged itself into her heart. Sakura announced sadly, "If I pull it out now, she will bleed internally. So what do we do? Will she live?" Naruto quietly asked in a tone not usually heard by the pink-haired girl. "Well, I can heal her ruptured organs and treat her burns, but we need a medic team to do the rest. Even with all of the things we know now about healing, it is kind of hard to say," she finalized. After taking a breath, she continued, "All right, here goes nothing." Then with that, she began to heal the ex-Akatsuki. Naruto fell silent as he resounded what Sakura told him. Konan was way more abysmal than he thought originally. The Rinnegan he was told to protect could actually die, and there wouldn't be anything he could do about it. But she couldn't die now. If he learned anything about his fight with Nagato, then he would know that no matter what happens, always have hope. That was what Naruto believed to begin with. So what made him change his mind now? Nothing. Nothing at all. His attitude altered slowly as memories flooded his head of the struggles he went through as a kid. All of the trials and tribulations he faced kept beating him down and wanting him to stay that way, But Naruto's determination made him rise against every factor that was laid upon him. Sakura stole a glance of his face change as he stood up. She could see the look in his eye. After that revelation of what he originally stood for, his face changed from one of sadness to one of serious fortitude. "She'll live. I just know it," he responded out loud. Of course, it wasn't really known whether or not she would live, but the boy didn't lose optimism. He was highly confident in his answer as he stared at the blue-haired girl. Sakura looked at her good friend, then glanced back down at the lowly Rinnegan. "Naruto, what do you see in her?" she thought apprehensively as she continued her treatment. Konan's face slowly improved from its previous painful expression to a softer, calmer fashion. The burn marks also faded gradually as Sakura continued her mystical palm technique, now keeping her focus solely on the ex-Akatsuki. A few moments later, the pink-haired medic Nin finished her treatment. "I've been all I can for now," she started while lifting herself from the roof. "The rib will have to be done in the hospital because it takes more than one person for a job like that. Okay?" He mutely looked at her and then turned his observation back to Konan. A slight smile grew on his features because of the noticeable improvements that were shown on the character's body. She now looked somewhat happier from all of the restoration that took place. Then, without hesitation, he picked up the blue-haired ninja gingerly the same way as before and started back in the hospital. "Naruto?" Sakura asked with a reached hand, but was once again denied recognition from the blonde-haired boy. Her eyes wandered on the blonde ninja for a few moments before she heaved a sigh and followed suit. The pitter-patter of feet echoed off the hospital walls as the duo wandered aimlessly for a room to place Konan into. It kind of angered them that they did not have an escort because they didn't know what room they were supposed to go to, that is, until a couple of A and BU appeared in front of them by Shunshin. "This way," one of the black-cloaked figures replied sternly. Naruto and Sakura looked and nodded at each other in silent unison, then trailed behind the two Black Ops members. They all reached a room at the end of another hall to the right and were welcomed with an operating table and several other medic Nin quietly waiting for their patient. It seemed as though the Hokage had kept her end of the bargain, so Naruto felt a little more appreciation toward the Sannin. There were also two other A and BU inside the emergency room, probably there to see that the recovery makes a success without any tampering or secret assassination attempts. Naruto slowly walked into the operating room and placed the Rinnegan's limp body carefully on the table. Not even a moment later, a few medic Nin began to operate on the ex-Akatsuki. Sakura then quickly filled them in on what she did and what was wrong with the woman before one of the other medical Nin walked over to both Naruto and Sakura and calmly shooed them out. "Don't worry, we'll take it from here," she replied softly to both of the young Leaf Nin, closing the door behind their exit. "Maybe I should get to know this boy," she thought as she turned her head to the blonde Nin. "Naruto-san, HM," he replied back to her. His face was still cheeky, but it also had a look of interest as well. "How long have I been in this infirmary?" She answered not even a second later. "Oh, you've been here, going on 3 days now?" Naruto responded, answering his rhetorical question and hers. 3 days? Konan asked herself. She has been in Konoha for 3 days, and no one has started a riot or a mob demanding total annihilation of the girl. She was an Akatsuki member. Didn't they want her dead? How is this possible? She asked in complete denial. The question caused an awkward look on Naruto as he turned sheepish and began rubbing the back of his head. "Well," he started, but then began fidgeting. "The village doesn't know yet. Only a handful of people know you are actually here, but they can't tell anybody. Not until we know exactly what to do about the situation." He finished, gazing around the room. Was all she could say about that. It seemed as though her life was spared for the time being, but then another thought struck her. "Nagato," the blue-haired girl whispered, receiving a look from Naruto, who was clearing his ruminations. "Huh?" the blonde ninja asked as he didn't quite hear what she said. "Nagato. Where's Nagato? Did you save him from Madara?" She started back louder than ever. Naruto looked at her, then dropped his eyesight to the ground forlorn. Konan automatically knew what the answer was from the boy's gestures alone. "Don't tell me," she asked the boy before it caused her to sink low on her bed and clench her fists. "Damn it," she began, I had everything planned to defeat him. I was ready for whatever he threw at me. And I failed. Her voice began to quiver as she continued her rant. I went through so many scenarios in my head. I even calculated timing between tactics, and I couldn't even protect my best friend. Her voice cracked and tears began to well up in her eyes. She had worked hard to prevent the kidnapping of Nagato's body, but all she really achieved was knowing that she was too weak to protect her last friend from the clutches of darkness. Naruto looked at the girl plainly. A feeling of guilt washed over his body as he thought about what had previously occurred because he also failed at getting Nagato's body back. Just the thought made him want to beat himself up after causing another pain to someone. He then remembered what the older Uzumaki told him once Naruto received his Rinnegan. "Take care of Konan for me. Blame me," the blonde Jinchuriki told the woman. She looked at him with widened eyes as he glared upon her. What? I was the one who let him get away with his body. I had a chance to save him, and I blew it. His face showed signs of anger, but he still kept a serious tone. "Hit me." He pointed to himself with his thumb and lowered his defenses in front of her. But I don't W," she started, but was immediately interrupted by Naruto. "I said hit me." His eyes still gleamed with seriousness. "Don't put the blame on yourself. Blame me instead." She slowly raised her hand and curled it into a fist as she thought about everything she hated. All of her loathing was going directly into her hand as she finally built up enough strength to hit the boy. Naruto braced for impact as Konan's fist came hurtling towards him. The blonde then shut his eyes, hoping that it wouldn't hurt, only to feel nothing. A few seconds passed as he slowly opened his eyes again. "I can't do it," she replied in a hoarse whisper. "I can't blame you for what happened." Her fist fell to her side as she lost all means to slaughter the boy. Lost for words, Naruto just stood there. Yet again, he didn't think that it would click to her as easily as it just did. Maybe he was underestimating her. "If I told myself you did it, then I would be lying." Her gaze faltered back to her bed as she continued. "It wasn't your fault. It was his." Madara's. Such distaste spewed from her mouth every time she talked about him. If words could kill, he would have died 1,000,000 times over. "Look, I'm sorry I can't bring him back," Naruto began, pacing around the room. "But I will keep my promise to Nagato. I promise I will make peace with everyone and make people finally understand one another. I will become Hokage." Konan quit her self-loathing and curiously observed the boy. He turned to look at her, then gave her his trademark grin. She couldn't help but smile slightly at the young Leaf-Nin before a certain Hokage came through the door along with Sakura. Tsunade gave her a once-over before speaking. "I see you've made a full recovery." The blue-haired Nin sized up the Godame as well before speaking and let her true emotions fade for the moment. "I see you have as well," she said without much emphasis. "Yes, well, I can handle my own," Tsunade continued, "but I did not come here for idle chat. I came here for another reason altogether." "Then why are you here, Granny?" Naruto asked, slightly confused in the matter. "I was just about to get to that," she said, gaining full attention of both Konan and Naruto. Her eyes then looked at the ex-Akatsuki. "The reason I am here is to get you tested. We clearly can't have an enemy of Konoha living here without any clarification of non-malicious intent." "A living here?" Konan shouted abruptly. "I didn't say I was joining the Leaf Village." Tsunade shot her an evil glare. "You are in no position to argue. Naruto saved your life and brought you to this village, and it was because of him that I have decided to spare your existence as well." Konan threw her eyes to her bed and reflected silently, not really knowing what to say. "I could just sign for your execution here and now and be done with you, but you could prove to be a valuable asset to this village, being as how you have trained under Jiraiya, who is one of the legendary Sannin, such as myself, and you're a former member of Akatsuki nonetheless. That is why, henceforth, you have been disregarded as the S-rank Nuke Nin you once were. You are now known as Konan of the Leaf with probation rights." Lady Tsunade, Sakura stated questioningly, "Is it really a good idea to enlist an Akatsuki as a Leaf Nin?" Tsunade turned her gaze to Naruto, who was staring at her with a slight smile, then turned her attention to Sakura. "If Naruto believes in her, then it wouldn't hurt to give her a shot. I've already talked to the council, and they have fully agreed to allow her stay as long as the probation is in effect. It wasn't easy, though. The pink-haired girl looked at the Go Dame cautiously as a sign that she really didn't know if it was the right choice. Tsunade sighed and turned her view to the concerned medic Nin. Don't worry, she whispered. I'm sure there's a good reason why Naruto wants to do this. She then looked at the blonde and switched to the blue-haired Leaf Nin, even if it doesn't make any sense. She finalized to Sakura before continuing her original response to Konan. There will be clothes sent to this room for you to change into. Afterwards, A and B you will arrive, and you will immediately go to the interrogation chambers for your cross-examination to see if you're actually hiding something. Tsunade turned for the door and shifted her head to match eyes with Konan. God help you if you are. She then walked out of the room, with Sakura trailing behind, taking her final glance as well, before closing the door behind them. Konan slumped in her bed in defeat. It seemed she had no choice in the matter anymore about where she could go or what she could do. If she tried to escape in her current weakened state, she would only get caught and put to trial on instant treason. Things would not go well, and it would only mean the end of her. Well, I believe you'll pass, and no sweat. Naruto assured the new Leaf Nin with his wide smile. She looked at him and saw the warmness etched across his face. It caused her to barely smile again to the boy, and she couldn't understand it. There's something about him, something I can't describe. What is this feeling? She mused a couple of more seconds before Naruto started walking away. Naruto-san, where are you going? Oh, Naruto started. Well, Captain Yamato wanted to see me. He told me after I got done in the hospital, I should see him immediately. Oh, Konan silently added. There was obviously a hint of unease in her voice, and the Jinchuriki noticed it. Don't worry, you'll do fine. You're not like the others, and I can see that, Naruto added with a thumbs up before making his final leave. The door clicked softly as silence enveloped the room, leaving Konan alone on her bed to reflect. Oh, Naruto hopped over a few buildings and darted through various people until he reached a single building on the other end of the construction mess on the opposite side of the village. It was dull in color and lacked any enthusiasm in the creativity department. It didn't have a door, as it only had two flaps in front of the doorway, slowly wafting in the breeze. It was probably used previously for medical treatment, seeing as how it had stretchers laying around it and various other medical equipment. Now it was abandoned, as Konoha had a hospital again. Well, this was where Captain Yamato wanted to see me. He replied to himself unenthusiastically. Naruto pushed the flap around his body as he made his way into the room. The room was a little stale and still looked messy with many needles and bandages lying around. The only thing that seemed new was the bodies of the ninja who occupied the building. Yamato noticed the boy and not too soon responded to his arrival. Ah, I see you made it. Yo. Kakashi responded to the boy, who only looked a little puzzled at the masked man's greeting. Wait a minute. What's Kakashi-sensei doing here? The blonde asked as Yamato walked over to the Jinchuriki. Kakashi looked at the boy, then at Yamato before he let out a smile underneath his mask. Well, it's no big deal, but we heard from Lady Tsunade that Nagato did something to you before he died. We just want to make sure nothing affects the QB's final seal, is all. That's right, Naruto. Yamato stated, whatever he did to you could affect the seal and ultimately release the QB from its cage. That is why we have to check your body for anything abnormal. Oh yeah. Naruto banged his hand in his other palm. I haven't shown you yet, have I? Yamato looked at Kakashi before the masked man spoke up to the blonde Jinchuriki. Shown us what? Not long after that. Naruto concentrated for a second before he finally yelled out, Rinnegan. The blonde's eyes shot open and revealed two purple circles replacing each iris. Both Yamato and Kakashi stifled a breath as they were taken aback at the sight of the new Rinnegan eyes that replaced Naruto's original sky blue eyes they had grown accustomed to. Rinnegan. Kakashi started, how did you? It was Nagato's final gift to me. As it turns out, he was my cousin. He replied happily before he remembered his death. It caused Naruto to downcast his eyes for the moment. Naruto, this is unbelievable. Yamato looked deeper into the eyes of the new Rinnegan wielder. The purple gleamed in his irises from the light bulb on the ceiling. It wasn't a full Rinnegan yet, but it was still just as intimidating. Kakashi, can you help me out here? Oh yeah, sure thing. The masked man was still amazed at the sight, but lifted his ite to reveal his Sharingan. Naruto stood there for a few seconds before Kakashi spoke up again. Well, it's not an illusion. There's nothing behind it. It's not a trap either, so it's the real deal. The wood expert was dumbstricken. This was actually the first time he got to see this type of eye up close, but turned to a more serious facade after he realized something. Yamato looked down, then smiled slightly. It seems the Uzumaki bloodline carries the Rinnegan after all. Huh? What do you mean? Kakashi brought up before receiving a look from Yamato. Well, back when I was a Chunin, there was this rumor going around the adults that a Rinnegan user was actually found. I don't remember much, but the higher-ranked ninja also said something about the Uzumaki. I was young back then, so I really didn't understand what they were talking about at the time. But now that I see Naruto here, the heir to the Uzumaki bloodline, I realized that both of those stories were actually one story. Kakashi thought coherently about it. Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that too. That was a while ago though. I guess when they saw that Kushina didn't have it, they gave up the idea. So, are you saying that I actually have a Kekiai Genkai? Naruto asked as if he were a child getting candy. Yes, it seems so, Yamato replied before giving a glance at the Jinchuriki. All right, Naruto. Let's see if it alters your seal or not. Oh. It was very quiet in the lone recovery room that Konan resided in. The ANBU already came to her room and gave her the clothes she was supposed to change into only a half minute after Naruto left. They seemed to fit her perfectly, which kind of threw her off for the moment. But then she realized that her other clothes were missing, so she assumed that they knew her sizes from them. She then walked into the small bathroom that was on the other side of her room. A sigh escaped her lips as she looked herself up and down in the bathroom-sized mirror. What was she wearing? How could she wear something like this? As if irony was taking a crack at her itself, she came dressed in something that seemed to humiliate her. The same outfit that many other ninja wore who tried to stop her, she dressed in as well. From head to toe, she bore the greenish Jounin vest with a black long-sleeved turtleneck shirt underneath that had the orange Uzumaki swirl on the left arm. She also wore the same black skin-tight pants that every other Leaf Ninja wore as well, bearing the shuriken pouch on her right thigh. Then to finish it off, her sandals were that of a black color as well, leaving no difference in color change to the outfit. I guess it's what I deserve, she replied woefully. Her gaze faltered as her eyelids lowered. Konan didn't think that she was worthy of these new clothes. Those who wore this vest obtained it through honorable means to their village. I shouldn't wear something like this. The clothes seemed to mock her, and it pushed her into a further state of suppression to the past, making her leave the bathroom, because she could not bear the sight of herself. The door opened not long after her room, as two ANBU appeared before her. Follow us, one of them ordered to the blue-haired Leaf Nin. She nodded silently, and walked away with the two Black Ops members. Shortly later, she found herself inside a small room with one table and two chairs. Two men were already inside the room and gave her a look of scorn. I see you're in Konoha. What are you doing here? The taller man asked the woman with a sneer. That only concerns me. It is none of your business, she replied in a dull tone. What did you say? The man responded back vehemently, picking her up by her Jounin vest. I should kill you right now for all of the suffering that was spread across this entire village. Now, Ebiki, we shouldn't do anything to harm this one. The other man shot back to the angry Jounin. Besides, we will find out soon enough of her true intent. Oh yeah, that's right, Inoichi. A slight chuckle escaped Ebiki's mouth, followed by a release of the woman. The blonde Yamanaka motioned for her to sit down after that little show. She sat in a chair opposite to the other man and stared unemotionally to the blonde Jounin. Inoichi looked to her for a moment before he started to speak. All right, I'm going to have to put you to sleep before I can perform the procedure. Hopefully you will cooperate with me, so there won't be any trouble. She shook her head in agreement before he started talking again. Okay, allow me to start. And not long after that, she unknowingly fell unconscious to a sleeping jutsu. Now, let's see what you are hiding, Inoichi stated as he placed his hand on top of her head. Flashback Who is this, and why is he even here? An 8-year-old Yahiko asked to the young girl about the same age. He's called Nagato. He looks so alone and pitiful outside that I told him to come live with us. Konan replied happily to the orange-haired boy. But he even brought a dog, sheesh. Nothing here, Inoichi thought as he read over her memories. But it seems Nagato and Konan are longtime friends. Let's go to another one. I am staying. Jiraiya told his team, mate Tsunade, who responded outraged. What? You can't be serious? Well, at least until they get on their feet. The younger Jiraiya shot back. Konan looked at the older man. She was a little worried about his stay, but he seemed to be real nice. In a way, he almost seemed like a father figure, especially after they got used to him being around. Oh, hoppin' planks? Where those? Konan asked the white-haired sage. Oh, he started. Well, they're to show who's here and who's not by the side it has been flipped to. If it's red, it means you're here. If it's white, it means you have left and can hop in anytime. A grin etched across the Leafnin's face as he waited for the kids to get the pun. But that failed when the young girl asked another question. But why do we need these? Konan asked, uncertain of the uses it pertained. Well, this area is still dangerous and you'll never know when they will come here and try to attack us. The sage answered realistically. So, you're saying that if it's red, then one of us has probably been captured, and when one is white and we're all here, then that means there's an enemy disguised as one of us? She asked Jiraiya in a state of confused understanding. That's very inspective, Konan. Unlike a certain other. The sage eyed the orange-haired boy studiously. Hey, I knew what you were talking about. Sort of. Yahiko retorted back. Nothing here either, but Jiraiya-sama taught them. Inoichi mentally disregarded the thought for now. Where are your darker thoughts? Why are you here? He then delved deeper into her mind. Kill me. Yahiko told Nagato with a definite voice. No, don't do it. Konan screamed to her Rinnegan-wielding partner at the top of her lungs. Nagato. The orange-haired man shouted to a stricken teammate. It seemed as though Nagato was in a difficult situation. He was given an ultimatum to either kill Yahiko or Konan gets killed by Hanzo. If you don't do it, this girl dies. Hanzo replied to the shaken red-headed Akatsuki. Not a split second later, a solid thud was heard as Yahiko impaled himself with Nagato's kunai. Both of you have to stay alive because you are the Messiah. Yahiko replied through pain breaths. I really believe you. And nothing more was ever said as Yahiko fell to the ground in one last dying breath. Yahiko! Konan shouted, but the man never answered or got up. A serious rage enveloped over Nagato as he lost all meaning within himself. Without a moment's haste, he began to slaughter everything in his path because nothing mattered anymore. It eventually led to a summoning that took the souls of everything his beast touched, causing the Rinnegan wielder to become paralyzed in the process by the rods that shot through his back. Nagato! A forlorn Konan called to the boy, but was ignored because of his insanity that consumed him. So, you were the real leader to begin with. Hanzo stated, crossing his arms to the crazed man before him. Who knew you were the one who had the Rinnegan this whole time? Not long after that, Nagato screamed and forced his summon in the enemy's direction only to miss his opponent by Shunshin. That's pretty tragic, the blonde Yamanaka thought to himself. Now, I see how they came to be. What a hard way to go through life. I still don't have what I need, though, so I need to keep searching. And with that, he went even further into her memories. I knew you'd be here. Konan told the man, full of hatred. So, I'm assuming you won't tell me where Nagato is? The swirling orange-masked man asked in a thought-so voice. I waited for a very long time to end you. Madara, the blue-haired girl, answered back forcefully. Tobi/Madara looked at the woman with a smirk under his mask. Just so you know, I won't go easy on you just because you were one of us. Oh, one question though. Do you think Naruto Uzumaki is that special? He asked in a menacing voice. Konan did not falter as she pierced through the man's one-eye glare with her own. Naruto is the embodiment of light itself. That's why every time he meets somebody, they carry the flowers of hope. And with that, Konan threw a few paper shuriken at the form of Tobi. Well, I may as well tell you a few things about your friends before you come to your imminent death. He replied coldly to the girl as he went intangible, completely evading the shuriken. Konan fell surprised to his intangibility before he brought his point back up. First of all, I was the one who made Yahiko form Akatsuki. The blue-haired girl widened her eyes in disbelief. And second, I was the one who gave Nagato the Rinnegan. He concluded to the dumbfounded girl, so really I just wanted to get my eyes back. But you You were just a foolish girl who didn't know anything, but now you know where Nagato's body is hidden. So I just need to detain you." All of this new information led into a fierce battle between the two Akatsuki as Konan did the paper angel technique to further her plans to see to his demise and failure. The altercation lasted for a very long time before it came to a screeching halt. Toby/Madara had somehow used a move that completely shut off his other eye underneath the broken orange mask in consequence. But this move allowed him to warp space and time to fuse reality and imagination. This attack caused Konan to be put in a deathly encounter with a masked man. He stabbed her in the back from behind with a pointed bamboo sword and pushed her off while he started talking again. There is no peace. There can be no hope. Nagato only wanted to feel better about his existence. Oh, but you'll see him soon enough. Then you can spend all of eternity lamenting your decision to listen to Naruto's garbage. As soon as he said that, the endless rain that fell over Amage Cure dissipated until it completely stopped. "What's going on? It can't be," Madara stated out loud, as his surprise seemed to arise in his words. The blue-haired ex-Akatsuki felt it as a sign and gathered enough will to continue. Yahiko's and Nagato's desire for peace has not left this world. I have faith in Naruto as well, because he will be the bridge to peace that everyone has desired, and I will be the pillar supporting that bridge. She then raised her arms to make one last attack on the broken masked man. It seemed as though Nagato's death made her make an important decision in her life. "I don't care if I am blown away in the process. I will SD dash." Before she could finish her sentence, a death grip was placed on her neck by the evil man. "You didn't think I let you do something like that, did you?" She could feel the life slowly fading from her body as Madara continued talking. "I will wilt your flowers of hope and fade the bridge to oblivion. When I am finished with this jutsu, your life will be no more, but before I do that, you will show me where he lies." She dared to look into the man's eye as the jutsu took place. "And no, I can't. No. Equals 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 in flashbacks equals 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 equals. No." She screamed out in the open, jolting both Ebiki and Inoichi. A small tear fell off of her cheek from the reoccurrence as she breathed heavily in nervousness. The Yamanaka immediately pulled his hand away as he remembered the memories of that final encounter and shook his head at the situation. What did you see?" Ebiki asked the other man, who slowly got up from his seated position. "She's clean," he answered solemnly, looking at the floor. As it turned out, Madara was behind everything. Ebiki's face faulted at that statement. "What? But I thought he was dead." "I'm not sure," the blonde started, "but I am positive that she wants to help us." Konan didn't say anything, but her facial features backed that statement Inoichi proclaimed. Ebiki couldn't believe it. A former Akatsuki actually wanted to help for a change. It seemed to make him actually go a little easier on the woman. A rare sight indeed. Ebiki thought out loud. "Well, since she passed, I guess we have to send her to the Hokage. She did tell us if the Akatsuki was approved to take her to her office." "I suppose so," the blonde replied indifferently. "Let's go." Konan got up from her seat and walked with the other two men who proceeded in front of her. Two ENBU guarded from behind, maintaining standard protocol. A short while later, they arrived at the Godame's office. She was assorting new files before her on the construction projects of Konoha. "Oh, I'm assuming it went well?" Tsunade asked in a rhetorical sense. "Yes, Lady Hokage," Inoichi responded, "and we also have information." "Well, the Hokage started. What are you waiting for? Spit it out." "Oh, right, well, it seems the man known as Madara is the one behind everything," Ebiki stated, causing Tsunade's eyes to widen in amazement. "Right? Madara is also known as Toby, the man in the orange mask." Inoichi followed up while closing his eyes and sighing. "What? The man in the orange mask is Madara?" Tsunade lost her words, but Madara should be dead. "I said the same thing," Ebiki stated to the Hokage. "Right. Well, I will let the others know. In the meantime, there is something I have to discuss with this woman." "Yes, Lady Hokage." They both replied in unison before they left the office. The room seemed to quiet itself once the two women were in the office alone. Tsunade walked over to her window that overlooked the village and gazed out in silence. Konan felt it was not in her place to talk, as she was technically the prisoner. There was nothing for her to say. She caused a lot of damage to the leaf, and now they had somewhat captured her as a repayment to the village. It remained quiet for another moment or two before Tsunade began to speak. There are these 3 kids, not even old enough to live on their own. We were coming back from a mission, and my partner noticed them. I didn't know what he saw in them, but he really wanted to teach them. He wanted to teach them how to protect each other. Konan listened to the story quietly as the Hokage continued. I didn't really think it was a good idea, but he saw something in those kids that I didn't at the time. So he left me and my other team mate to help these kids learn how to defend themselves. Tsunade's posture shifted to her other leg as she crossed her arms, still eyeing the village. Days turned into weeks until one day, I received mail from my partner. He wrote me a letter to keep me updated about his well-being. He would tell me how he was doing and ask me the same. But the longer he stayed away, the more he began to tell me about those kids. Eventually, whenever I received mail from him, that's all he would ever talk about. He would begin to go on and on about it in the letter that it would fill 5 pages or more. Conan's eyes widened slightly after hearing that, but she still said not a word. Those weeks turned into months and months turned into years until, finally, he returned home. When I saw him again, I was ecstatic. Everyone was happy upon his return. But when I looked at Jiraiya's face, I could tell something was wrong. Tsunade shifted her eyes onto the blue-haired Leaf Nin with a sense of sadness that seemed to radiate from them. It seemed those kids really grew on him. Konan couldn't deny it. Even though her emotions and past were buried from the long and arduous years of pain and fighting, she still had feelings. It seemed that she thought of Jiraiya as a father, although he wasn't there for very long. If anything, Jiraiya also thought of her as a daughter he never had, but he passed away after that fight with Pain. Now, the only people who had personal ties to herself and Jiraiya were Naruto and Tsunade. Could I ask you one question? The Sannin asked her only other companion in the room. After receiving a silent agreement from Konan, she continued, "What made you change your mind about Naruto?" Konan's throat seemed dry as if she couldn't say anything. She tried her best to clear her throat to speak. After a second, she began, because Nagato believed in Naruto, and if Nagato believed in him, then I will believe in him as well. I will support his will and well-being to ensure peace in this world. It is what Nagato and Jiraiya-sama would have wanted. The Hokage looked at her slightly pleased. That is what I wanted to hear. Tsunade then shifted her attention to her desk and opened a drawer. At first, I thought you were plotting something, but yesterday Naruto told me that he was the one who found you. So it's obvious that none of this was planned. She then pulled something rectangular from the drawer and began to look at it. It might be a while, but you may redeem your name just yet. And with that, the Godame threw the rectangular object toward the blue-haired ninja, who caught it with ease. The rectangular object was wrapped in a light, white silken material folded in an elegant manner. She pulled the folds apart and revealed something that took her breath away. A leaf hitayate. It matched her clothes with a coal color, and a leaf metal forehead protector gleamed impeccably in the light, showing no scratches or signs of wear and tear. It was new. It was a fresh start, which was something that felt unreal to her. The headband caused a sad smile to creep across her face as she stared at it incredulously. Naruto is busy right now being checked over by his captain, so you'll have to help the village rebuild instead, part of the council's orders, but the rest of your free time will be on something bigger. Your main objective? Tsunade tossed her eyesight over to Konan before she continued, is to protect and help Naruto master the Rinnegan. Konan didn't think too hard before she made a decision. Almost as if she was unaware she did it, Konan closed her eyes and wrapped the new hitayate over her forehead. She then twisted the fabric tails into a knot and pulled forcefully. Afterwards, she opened her eyes to reveal a newfound determination. Yes, Lady Hokage, it looks like you're okay, Naruto, Yamato replied to the blonde Jinchuriki as a matter of fact. It doesn't change anything at all. It's safe. Naruto lowered his mesh and orange-clad jacket, feeling a little happy that it was real. He actually owned a true Rinnegan, and he never knew it. Hey, Captain Yamato? Yes, Naruto. The wood user asked amused. Do you know anything else about the Rinnegan? He questioned to the Jounin. Yamato put his index finger to his chin as if deep in thought. then let out a sigh. I don't really know much else about it. We've never actually had one to study, so we don't really know anything. Sorry. Oh. Naruto sighed as he hopped to his feet from the medical table. Then a thought struck him. Wait a sec. I think I know someone who knows a thing or two about it. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei and Captain Yamato, but I have to run. He replied with a wave of his hand and dashed for the door. Naruto, Kakashi resounded in his mind. He just keeps getting stronger. Just like you wanted a sensei. His thoughts reminisced on the yondaime as he watched Naruto's final moments in the room. 88888888888888888. Naruto jogged through the streets at a steady pace. It was a sunny day, and people were still building away at the village. Since there was nothing left but the Hokage monument, they literally had to build a city from nothing. It didn't seem as much of a trouble to the villagers, for at least they were doing something to occupy their time. Naruto still received smiles from others as he passed by them. There would even be one or two girls around the same age as him that he would pass who, when he faced them, would turn their heads away and giggle. Since he never really saw what it felt like to be liked by another girl, it sort of creeped him out because he thought maybe they were planning something or making fun of him. Ignoring whoever and whatever, he continued. He was trying to reach the Hokage building because he wanted to see if Konan made it out fine. He wrapped around a newly built building and passed a few more people until he started hearing angry shouting and cursing. A few people seemed to be enraged about something as he gained ever nearer to the noise. It wasn't until he turned a corner that he saw a crowd of people arranged into an uneven circle. There seemed to be a fight that broke out, and people were encouraging it by keeping it contained in the irregular shape. After listening on the fight for another second or two, he could make out a few phrases the people were saying. Kill the bitch. Why is she here? She stole a leaf ninja's clothes. Probably trying to sneak in. Go back to where you came from, demon. Naruto got a little worried for this person. Did they really hate whoever this much? She couldn't have done something too bad. After those thoughts ran through his mind, a small break formed in the mass of confusion that enveloped this character in just enough time so he could see who they were fighting. It wasn't a fight. No, it was far from it. This was attempted manslaughter. There were several people on this one person, and there were even others trying to get their hits on the poor figure. Who were they thrashing on? It was someone who Naruto promised to protect. The person they were beating down was none other than the blue-haired ninja that he saved a few days ago. Konan, anger boiled in the pit of his stomach as he saw the woman lying on her back, getting hit in the face with a villager's fist and 3 or 4 others kicking her in her sides. It was a horrid sight to the blonde boy, as feelings came back that he hadn't felt in a long while. Without really thinking, the Jinchuriki blazed through all of the people and threw a right-handed cross to the one attacking her face. This, in turn, sent the abuser flying several feet away from the circle and everyone else to stop what they were doing. Konan weakly looked up to the boy and saw the anger in his eyes, almost as identical as the last time. And Naruto, does anybody else want to hit her? The blonde nin asked to anyone and everyone. All of the villagers stepped back a little at the sight of the Jinchuriki before they barraged him with an array of angry shouts. Why are you defending her? She's an Akatsuki. She doesn't belong here. She needs to be dead, just like me, right? Naruto screamed as his head turned to one of the villagers, revealing his red, vertically slit eyes. Shouldn't I be dead too? I am a Jinchuriki. The villagers stepped a few more paces back before the villager began to speak. Well, you don't want to harm us, and we realize that. But that woman was in on the whole entire destruction of the village. But people can change, right? An unknown voice said that came from behind Naruto and surprised everyone. To Naruto's relief, the village's ruler appeared behind the boy, causing the whole scene to emit peace. Granny? Naruto started but was cut off by the Godame. Don't worry, Naruto. I'll take it from here, she replied firmly. The villagers once again began an upheaval in noise, clearly in rejection to the blue-haired woman's presence. Tsunade listened with a half ear to what the villagers were saying before she raised her hand to clam them down. As soon as they pacified, she sighed softly. Look, I'm sure all of you are upset about this new occurrence, but let me assure you, there's a perfect explanation for all of this. The villagers remained observant on the speaker. Naruto was looking over Konan and helping her stand on her feet. Yes, Tsunade continued. She was a member of Akatsuki, but she has been captured. Now you're probably also wondering why she is wearing normal leaf attire. A few people nodded as a sign of agreement. Well, the council and I have decided that, since she partook in the annihilation of the village, she should wear what many of our fellow ninja have worn to remind her of the past and her misdeeds that followed to the leaf's destruction. With that said, she will stay here and forever live her life in the shadow of the leaf, helping rebuild the village and whatever else we ask of her as penance for that sad day that fell upon our land. The Hokage looked over to the newly assigned Leaf Nin, who looked away as a sign of guilt crossed her features. She could see the sadness without having to really look too hard. All of the villagers seemed to take the Godame's statement at face value, because a lot of them smiled viciously at the price the woman had to pay. That is why, from this moment forward, no one is to harm or maim this person because she will prove herself to be of worth. Understand? She concluded with that and watched as the villagers grumbled and removed themselves from the area to continue what they were doing previously. There were a few villagers who still glared at the blue-haired ninja with distaste before they walked away, as well leaving only Tsunade, Konan, and Naruto alone. The female Sanine then took sight of the other two standing there. She went to say something but felt slightly dizzy, so she closed her eyes and heaved a sigh. "Thanks, Granny." Naruto sighed as he gazed down at his feet. I know Naruto." She replied to him with a slight smile. "Just be glad I was thinking about you," she stated before opening her eyes and turning to make her leave. It was never really clear who she was talking to in that statement, but before anyone could ask, she disappeared by Shunshin. A crossed look came over the boy's features, but only for a moment as he shook it off and looked at the ex-Akatsuki. "Come on, Konan," Naruto told the blue-haired ninja with a smile. "Let's get you cleaned up." She looked over to the boy and reflected silently, thinking about everything that had just taken place. Naruto went out of his way to protect her again. He even went so far as to hit someone else in his own village. But was it for his promise or for something else? It seems he still has some buried feelings about his past, she thought quietly before taking his offer and following him. A little while later, they reached Naruto's home. He pulled out a key from his pocket, unlocking his door and pushing it open to reveal the inside. It was nearly the same as last time, except some odd and end things were lying on the floor. They both walked into the living room, and Naruto helped his guest sit on the couch that overlooked the street. He left her alone for a moment, and only a moment before he walked back in the room with a couple of rags and a bowl of warm water. He also carried a bottle of some unknown brand of ninja pills that was halfway filled and a roll of bandages. He sat down beside her and began to take a look at the damage. Her hair was a little disheveled and small cuts made their way onto her face. She also had a black eye, and a small amount of blood was on her lip, which seemed to have left a trail on her face, but was dried over time. "Why didn't you defend yourself?" Naruto asked as he continued looking over her face. "Well, violence is not always the answer. Also, I do believe that I would have serious repercussions if I touched anyone in your village. Killing someone on my first day is not a very good impression, is it?" She replied, nonchalantly looking down. He laughed lightly at that. "No, I guess not." He then went for the rag and began dipping it into the warm water. He pulled it up a few seconds later and immediately stopped. "Wait a second. What the hell am I doing?" Then again, she hasn't said anything yet, so I guess it's okay. The Jinchuriki sank the rag back into the lukewarm water, wrung it out, and slowly inched his hand closer to her face. He came just a hair away from making contact with skin before a hand grabbed his wrist, knocking the warm rag to the young woman's lap. "I can do this on my own. I do not need your assistance," she replied sharply with a facial reaction that matched. The only reason he got as far as he did was because she wasn't paying attention to him. "Oh, sorry." "Aha," he replied wryly. Now he felt like an idiot. Of course, she wouldn't let him do that. I should have known. She began to wipe her face with the rag softly, closing her eyes to the sensation it gave her. Naruto didn't really know what to do anymore, so he thought quietly to himself. Actually, he was thinking about the villagers and how they reacted to her. They hated her. Lotea wanted her dead. He couldn't help but remind himself about the way they used to act to him when he was younger. This feeling was something that he never wanted to experience again, because for the longest time, He was the villagers' beacon of hate. Even through his academy years, people hated him. He thought the only way to get attention was to act out and become a nuisance. He did bad pranks and jokes all over the village. He even marked all over the Hokage monument, but people noticed him. It didn't matter how he got noticed back then, just as long as somebody was watching him. The only reason he ever got any friends was because he got stuck on a team with people who had to deal with him. They eventually realized not to judge a book by its cover and finally became friends with the boy. Years passed, and finally everyone recognized Naruto as a person, not a demon. But now the villagers have someone new to hate, someone to blame everything on. A new pariah, which was something Naruto had been previously. Maybe the same thing will happen to Konan. He thought in a sense of hopefulness. Maybe people will see her like they see me now. He brooded silently a few more moments before a soft voice interrupted him. Naruto-san, yeah? He asked curiously. The blonde was a little disappointed that he was cut short in his thoughts, but was willing to talk. There was something I have wanted to ask you ever since I've been here. She then stopped rubbing her face and looked at him with interest. How did you know Madara was after me? It's like you knew I was in danger. Well, he started while gripping his chin and closing his eyes as if deeply concentrating. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? She asked him irately from his stupid answer. Hold on a second. Let me explain. He then positioned himself correctly on the couch, pushing his hands on his legs. A close of his eyes signified that he was deep in thought. Well, when I was home, something happened to me. I was watching the villagers rebuild their homes from this window. He pointed to the one behind the couch they were sitting on. Everything seemed fine, and it felt like another day. Well, then I began to reminisce about the reveal of my true heritage and Nagato's death. Konan's attention was still laid upon the boy, keeping movements to a minimum as to not disturb his thought processes. Around that time, I started to look at the flowers you gave me, and I started to feel sad. While I was doing it, though, the flowers, they started wilting, but origami cannot wilt. She rebuked, followed by a continuation of his explanation. Yeah, I know, that's what I thought too. I thought it was just a jinjutsu you did to the flowers that make them seem realistic, but then it got even weirder. Konan looked at him confused in the matter and silently urged him to resume. Seconds later, a sigh left his mouth and he spoke. After they wilted, they caught on fire. Caught on fire? She was taken aback at the statement. The blue-haired Leaf Neen didn't do any of that and felt like Naruto was just telling a lie to make it convincing. But then again, the way he spoke so calmly about it made him seem like he was telling the truth. Yeah, I don't really get myself, but they did. I was a little worried about it, and I didn't want to think anything more. But the Jinchuriki then lowered his eyes to the floor. Then I started to feel this pain. It was in my chest, and I felt like I was dying. But when this feeling continued, the only person that popped in my head was you. It was like I could feel your anguish, and my thoughts were telling me you were in trouble. So I just dashed out of the village by myself, and the feeling led me to you. He finalized with a smile. Konan thought for a moment. It was a lot to take in because stuff seemed to not add up. How could Naruto know she was in danger? His Rinnegan couldn't have been activated during the time, so a small grin appeared on her face as she came to a conclusion. Nagato did that. That seemed to confuse the poor boy, huh? What do you mean? He's not alive anymore. So how could he do anything? Well, then he must have done something while he was alive. She responded as if trying to give him a clue. What would he have done? Naruto asked abruptly. The only time he could have done anything was... How could he not have seen this before? It should have been obvious, my awakening. Exactly, Konan answered with finality. It seems Nagato has passed his locator link to you. Locator link? What do you mean? The Jinchuriki asked. She then heaved a sigh. Nagato used a jutsu on all of his 6 paths to locate them whenever he needed them. By sealing a small amount of chakra into a certain part of the body on the person they want to connect with, the person in charge can submit a small chakra frequency, producing a connection with the other person. In order for it to work, though, the receiver had to have an antenna to cast and receive the signal, and the person giving the signal has to have one as well. It doesn't even matter how big it is. It could be the size of a hair and still do its job. You can't control a body with an antenna that's small, but you can still locate whoever you're looking for. I was the only other person to have a locating link placed on my body, which was transmitted by my lip piercing. She then points to the small hole under her bottom lip, signaling that something was once there. The person doing the jutsu leave a hint of their own chakra into the other person, so they can always find who they're looking for. It seemed Nagato transferred his chakra locators to you, and since I was the only other person to have his chakra link, you could feel me, but only me. More or less, you unknowingly activated this link while you thought about me. Oh, Naruto replied, scratching his head. I guess that makes sense, but still, how did I receive the signal? I don't have anything on my body. I have one place in mind, Konan said as she got closer to the boy. Naruto felt a little awkward from their shortened distance away from each other as she moved closer to the boy, but sort of shrugged it off for now. Turn your head for me, please, she asked softly to him, who then received a turned head from the boy. She looked around the sides of his face, then grabbed his chin and quickly turned his head to gaze at his left temple. Naruto was bemused of her actions because he didn't really know what she was doing, but felt even more creeped out when she started touching his hair, moving it around softly with her fingers. Hey, what are you, YOW? Found it, Konan replied as her hand came around his face, unveiling a small shard. Very clever, Nagato. What is that? Looks like a splinter, Naruto told the girl quizzically. This is a chakra rod fragment. This is what Nagato used for you to find me, as in the little antenna I mentioned earlier. Oh, Naruto mentioned, but it's so small. Konan seemed slightly amused at his reaction to this. Well, yes. Like I said, they can be as small as a hair, but it still does what the person wants it to. Naruto liked the idea. It was very smart to think of something like this, and it got him wanting to do the same. Hey, I should get one of those. Then if anyone ever gets in trouble, I can come in and save the day. You mean like the time that you saved me? The blue-haired Kunoichi asked, smiling at the end of her lips. Oh, Naruto blushed about her teasing question. Oh, well, I guess. He laughed slightly as he rubbed the back of his neck. Without any prior notice, Konan wrapped her arms around him again. This time, instead of sympathy, it was one that she needed and desired. Thank you, Naruto. A subtle tear began to descend its way down her face. It seemed she had more going on than he thought. She did so well to hide her emotions when they were in the hospital room that he never really noticed. That was when a melancholy mood placed itself on the house of Uzumaki Naruto. This was the third time he saw her cry, but this time Konan willingly hugged him. It was good to have a shoulder to cry on, someone for emotional support. Of course, the factor of her being older and barely knowing the boy didn't really matter at the time, because he was the only one she could do this to. He had the most tie to Nagato now, and she was in a village that hated her. So who else than the blonde Nin that rescued her in the midst of her death? Naruto tried to collect his thoughts before he gently wrapped his arms around her as well. A smile overtook his lips as he began to speak happily to the woman. Don't worry. When I save this world from the never-ending pain, then you won't have to suffer anymore, because I will be Uzumaki Naruto, Hokage of Konohagakure. Naruto let go of his grip and stared at her with pure determination, pointing to his own chest with his thumb. I will make sure that everyone understands one another and peace lives across the land. It is my dream, my goal, my desire. If there is no way to peace, then I will find a way. Konan stared at the boy. She did misjudge him. Yes, his way of thinking about finding peace was childish, but somehow he keeps stepping closer to that ambition with hope. That smile. I understand now. That feeling I felt in the hospital. It was warmth. I have finally realized why Nagato trusts him. He truly is the light to this world. I have faith in you. Another smile graced her features as she wiped a stray tear from her eye, and I won't let anyone interfere. The will for peace has been passed down to you, and I promise on my life and on my friends' graves that I will protect that will and allow the bridge to peace to be built with only the strongest materials. The support that holds underneath will keep that bridge standing taller than all the land, so that nothing evil can ever reach its peak. I promise, Yahiko. Nagato. In that moment, they both looked at each other in a new light that only seemed unfeasible previously. On that day, a new friendship was born between the two, which could possibly exceed every other's expectation. Was it fate that these two met? Did they share something that no one else had in the known universe? They seemed to know each other, if only slightly, and were willing to go out of each other's way to make this path to peace probable. It was a mutual feeling, an understanding. Maybe the universe intended this outcome and was correcting itself by allowing this abnormal charade to continue. This didn't seem real. It couldn't be real. But here they were, joined together by an unusual game of chance where the hand dealt in their favor. Maybe this could work. It was only planned from the beginning anyway. Well, that's it for today. I hope you all enjoyed this content. If you do, please leave a like, share, and comment anything you want, because more you comment, it motivate me to upload more content. And make sure to check out the author of this story. All details and description